So I just tried to make a video, a recording about fentanyl and the naloxone and my views on it. And of course, hackers disabled my phone and deleted the video because the government here is selling drugs. Um, you see, I never liked I never agreed with the ease of access to naloxone because it discourages drug users from taking responsibility for their addictions and monitoring their doses. Now, I'm recently clean. I'm about a month clean from fentanyl and just over 10 days clean from meth, which is a huge victory for me. And I was never when I was heavy in my use, I was never I never agreed with naloxone. I think it's a waste of money, and I think it just encourages drug addicts to be irresponsible. And staff and community safety and health workers enable drug addicts to overdose repeatedly, damage their brain, damage their body. Um, because they know that, oh, someone's just going to revive me anyway. Now, another thing is when you're constantly overdosing like this repeatedly, it jacks up your tolerance. So now you have to buy more fentanyl. And of course, I know that the real estate companies are the ones selling this shit. And the reason, there's two reasons for it. Number one, it's a control. It's a land. They kill off a population base of people whose bodies maybe don't have the constitution where they can just overdose again and again and again, and then they die, or people kill themselves with it, like I tried to do when I was living on the street. I'm no longer suicidal. My mental health is in excellent shape. I'm clean. I don't even smoke weed anymore. So, and I'm quitting cigarettes right now because I'm just completely disgusted with the whole culture. And again, and then the other factor with this naloxone is it's about control. The government sells drug. The government, law enforcement, the military, intelligence agencies, they sell the drugs for the real estate agencies and the insurance companies, so that they can use thugs to control, like patsies, to harass myself, my uncle, and other human rights activists, and get them to do just about anything. And people will, they control them for prostitution rings, labor. It's a slave racket. And the more people overdose, the higher their tolerance goes, the more fentanyl the government can sell. Public health sells it. The public health isn't concerned about your health and safety. COVID-19, fentanyl lowers your immune system greatly, and carfentanil even worse. When I was doing it, I got MRSA, which I treated naturally with naturopathic remedies. You know, I do not trust the doctors. I don't trust the hospitals. I'm really disappointed in the police who are also engaged in selling this shit. But I always support the police. No institution is perfect, but I'd much rather have the police around than to have them defunded and have these community safety morons with their naloxone hanging on their belt. It's enabling. You're enabling drug addicts. You are, because on one hand, yes, you're killing your client base, but on the other hand, you weed out your client base to have that select few that can just keep buying it and buying it and buying it and buying it, and then you can permanently sell drugs and profit off it to finance terrorism in the United States and other countries. Here. This is just like the Iran-Contra affair, but with fentanyl and meth. Same thing, same people doing it. 2222. And it's just, you know, I don't understand why people are so stupid and gullible here. Why, you know, I remember when these kits came out, I think it cost the taxpayer like $240 per kit. It might be cheaper now, but like, you know, this is something that should be used in an emergency. And, you know, if people are going to overdose with this, you know, and then have this shit, it should be a 3 strikes you're out policy. I mean, that's fair. When I was doing it, I for the longest time I refused to carry naloxone on me because I didn't agree with it politically. You know, I agree with I'm about personal responsibility, managing your dose. You know, you can always put more in, but you can't take it out. Maybe smoke it or snort it instead of inject it. You know, but I would go to the sites where they, you know, and the site, the public health is run by hate groups. It's run by terrorists. It's run by drug dealers, you know, and like the Roehampton Hotel is right by a high school and right by a nursery school. There's parents, there's families, there's kids, there's old people. You know, this is not appropriate. This, you know, having these things on having community safety patrols with this dangling from their belt, it encourages drug use. It encourages the delinquency of a minor. It's a waste of money. And I mean, the community safety patrols don't keep anybody safe at all. The entire thing is a racket, you know. You know, and I'm really sick of our mayor John Tory placating and pandering to these interests who are trying to destroy his city. I mean, you know, and of course I'm very openly critical of Mayor Tory and, you know, Justin Trudeau. I mean, even Doug Ford, he's coming around, you know, okay, you know, I don't mind. I would vote for Doug Ford again because, I mean, he worked with me here with the pandemic, and, you know, he's taken my whistleblowing on my now defunct Twitter account seriously. You know, and I'm willing to forgive and move on with Doug Ford. But I absolutely hated his guts for a while, and, you know, but he's come around, and of course he used to be a drug dealer as well. And, you know, this is ridiculous. Why is this so widely available, but the drugs are still illegal? They should really be sold by, you know, people should be able to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and buy their fentanyl, you know, or a DCBO, like the LCBO. We had the Drug Control Board of Ontario. People should be able to go buy their drugs legally, you know, have it lab tested, and, you know, also they shouldn't be selling the shit. They should. What's wrong with just regular heroin? I mean, or just regular fentanyl? I know personally when I was doing it, I preferred fentanyl to heroin because I found heroin. I didn't like the constipation or the urinary retention or the, you know, the itching and the other side effects, which I found quite annoying. But I mean, that was just me. But now with the carfentanil, that is partially because you know, it's a smuggling issue. It's easier to smuggle a more potent opioid than it is to you know, smuggle heroin. But you see, when you have illegal drugs, when drugs which really should be legal, when they're illegal, you know, then terrorists get involved, you know, hate groups, you know, manufacture it. I mean, that's what the war on terror is all about. You know, they go to Afghanistan to guard the poppy fields. I knew this because I had friends who would come over and bring, you know, duffel bags full of Oxy 40s for $1 a piece. And, you know, I had friends who were veterans in the war in Afghanistan, and they weren't fighting the Taliban. They were engaging in multinational drug dealing, and, you know, they're the terrorists in that regard. And, you know, the whole reason these drugs are illegal is because our government wants to engage in these shady operations. It wastes money, and I don't understand how the taxpayer is so stupid that they don't see this, or so cowardly that they're not willing to stand up for their country and say enough is enough. You know, there are buildings that are completely empty in the city, but you know, but the city would rather have pay $7,000 a month per client for this, for this shelter system, so that they can, they can have cameras in the rooms. They can blackmail people with this shit. They can, they can use they can use the footage for pornography and, targets like myself, and my uncle, videotape either one of us when we're in the washroom alone, mind you. We don't go to the washroom together, and I feel I have to mention that because there's a lot of homophobia in Toronto. My uncle's gay, and I'm a supporter, but and I'm straight. But you see, the thing is, because conversion therapy, and people think being gay is a choice here in Toronto, despite all the posturing otherwise. And because I'm close with my uncle, according to these same idiots, these drug dealers, these terrorists, I'm gay by association, because of, to them, hanging out with a gay person makes you gay. And not that it's even an allegation. What's wrong with being gay? There's nothing. It's completely natural. But the thing is, this shit is not natural. What happened to classic opium or laudanum, or smoking the poppies, or smoking in the opium dens? This takes it to a whole new level. And I mean, if people are so stupid that they're going to continually overdose, damage themselves, and we don't know the long-term consequences of repeated naloxoning. From what I see it, by the misshapen appearance of these addicts, it does not look good. Hey, you have $5? Hey, you stole my phone. It's like, and they're writhing around, they're dancing around like idiots, and of course, they get sympathy from staff, from management, who pander to very destructive thuggery at my expense, at my uncle's expense, and at everybody else's expense, because you're paying for it. Do you know why everything is so goddamn expensive? Is because you're paying for it. It costs, at A&W, it costs $30 for my uncle and I to have a meal where we're actually full. I eat a lot. I'm a voracious eater, and it's expensive, and for the longest time at the Roehampton, they were using yummy catering, which was poisoning the food. It was stale. There were chemicals in it. They were causing several people digestive distress, and clumping up and getting stuck in the bowel, which is, and of course the mental health and nutrition and gut health are hand in hand. It's the same thing. But thankfully now there's a cook. The cook is great, but I mean, at the same time, I can't cook my own meals, because we're here at the mercy of staff who are really working in a parasitic industry. They don't do anything. I mean, they get rich. They get a middle-class salary at our expense, where I'm slandered, my uncle's slandered. We can't work if we wanted to, which we do. But I mean, we want to work in a job where we're not being tortured by, people who, promote this shit. I mean, there's no such thing as harm reduction. There, it says harm reduction right here. This is not harm reduction. This is harm increasing. This increases harm. Harm reduction would be selling legal fentanyl, legal heroin, reserving the carfentanil for elephants, and having trained medical professionals reverse overdoses that happened, 3 strikes. It's a 3-strike you're out policy. People are shirking their responsibilities because the government is enabling them. It's a nanny state. It's quite oppressive. And people like myself who we do for ourselves. I clean my own washroom. I don't want the staff coming in here and cleaning, using that shit and jizz rag they call a mop, because they're foreign spies that don't actually know how to clean anything. foreign spies love to they love to get jobs as cleaners, and they're terrible at it. You can tell. So and it's quite adorable when they're nervous on their first day of spying, and they're just like, you know, because I know the intelligence agencies like the back of my hand. I'm a one man CIA. I'm joking, obviously. I'm not the intelligence agencies. I'm not a police officer. I'm not, I'm a citizen who has taken it upon himself to investigate crimes which are deliberately being covered up by the media, by law enforcement, by the people who should be serving us and protecting us, and the oversight boards, to the ombudsman. I mean, they're all fucking corrupt, and this is exactly why. It's all dirty drug money. If you legalize the drugs, if you sold them at Shoppers, it's called Shoppers Drug Mart for a reason. And obviously the problem has become so pervasive that the police don't have the resources to arrest people for doing drugs, even doing drugs on the street. I mean, they're the ones selling it, and they're the ones giving it to informants to that they can use to harass, and of course, they set those informants up later to be arrested or worse. And but the problem is not the fact that the government is doing this. The problem is the fact that you, the average citizen, are going along with it. You're sticking your head in the sand. You're being deliberately ignorant of this issue, and this is why. I mean, evil triumphs when good men do nothing. I mean, I don't care. If people want to be dicks, if people want to be evil, I say let them. They make up such a small minority of the population that if people had half a fucking brain and a spine, they wouldn't get away. It would be hilarious. It would be cute, and they wouldn't get away with what they get away with. But the problem is people are cowards. They have no spine. They have no brain. They pander. They kowtow to thugs. I risked my life whistleblower. I mean, I risked my life just being alive because I am so heavily targeted, as is my uncle. But you see, despite the Operation Gladio saying, silence, I believe it's stay silent to protect freedom, which is complete bullshit. Secret, I quote John F. Kennedy when I say that the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open democratic society. And, secrecy and the lack of information, or the compartmentalization of information, that allows fascism and communism and all these isms to proliferate when you keep secrets. And there's no such thing as a secret. I mean, how much has the government tried to how much fucked up shit has the government tried to keep secret by discrediting me and my uncle? They couldn't get a schizophrenia diagnosis to stick. Obviously not. And even if let's just say I were schizophrenic, if that were actually a real disorder, or what they, not the result of brain damage or, classified technology, classified electromagnetic and sonic technology, which you can find the patents for very easily with a simple Google search. Let's just say, for argument's sake, I were schizophrenic. That doesn't necessarily, that somebody's schizophrenia doesn't absolve the government from torturing them. People will do, no matter what somebody tries to hide, if people are engaging in nefarious activity, they're engaging in it. It doesn't matter if, but you see, this again goes back to the same problem with the corruption of public health, public safety. The psychiatric industry is pervasively corrupt. It's parasitic. It does no good for anybody. My entire Instagram page, I had 3 Twitter accounts that are disabled. I'm next, it's TikTok. And now I hear there's a Parlor. So I didn't like the layout for Parlor. I fucking hate social media, by the way. But you see, and I'm not even very good at it, but I managed to cause a lot of trouble for the powers that be, who are using their dwindling resources to abuse that they stole from you, to abuse you and me and everybody else. Even the people they're using to harass, they treat them worse than they treat me. So it's like, but I mean, of course, it all goes, it all boils down to this culture of taking abuse. Just taking it, bending over and taking it. Thank you, sir. Can I have another? No, you may certainly. No, you may certainly not have another. Because if you have another, you're having another at my expense, in my uncle's expense, in our children's not our society's children's expense. I would never bring a child into this fucked up world. That in and of itself is child abuse. Just simply bringing a child up in this world is fucking child abuse. And of course, interestingly enough, the issue of child safety wasn't even brought up at the Dog and Pony show that was the Roehampton protest. And when I went on Global News, they cut out everything I said about how the insurance agencies and the city and the real estate speculators and the real estate, the landowners bring these thugs in from the prisons, from the gangs, to load them up in drugs and encourage them to vandalize and shit, defecate, and cause trouble for residents. And like, how do they not see that? And of course, everybody's trying to do the compassionate thing. I'm sorry. Pandering to thugs is not compassionate for anybody, not even the thug. You see, people, thugs need a firm hand. They don't need to be spoiled, coddled, pampered, and enabled. Okay? And no, naloxone does not save lives. Harm reduction does not. Well, harm reduction saves lives, but this is not harm reduction. Just like the schools aren't education, the hospitals aren't healthcare. And right now, the police aren't enforcing the law. They're contributing to the problem. And I don't like to talk about. I'm terrified of the police. I don't like to complain about them publicly. I'm frightened of them. Because they're basically a paramilitary. They're more than one paramilitary group operating under a banner of a societal institution, constabulary, which is the police are a vital institution. And when they defund the police, they discredit them, they demoralize them, then they open up the door for hate group elements to infiltrate them. For a while on Twitter, and I still do back the blue. I still defend the police regardless, because this, by defunding them and by demoralizing them and not giving the police the respect that they deserve, it then encourages them to engage in misconduct, because they figure, what the fuck, and their jobs are dangerous enough anyways. They know that they might die or be arrested or God knows what, because we live in such a fucked up society, that they figured, what the hell, I might as well engage in misconduct. What's the point? And I understand that. And it is tempting when when you do have that power in society. But with great power comes great responsibility. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. And people need to smarten up. And they can start by regulating the use or simply eliminating the use of naloxone for anybody who isn't a doctor. And I don't like doctors either. But people are listening to me. I know that, and thank you. I do want to thank the Justice Department, the United States, and William Barr. He agrees with me, as does Donald Trump. And I mean, if I were American, I'd vote for Donald Trump. And I was critical of Trump at first. I had reason to be, because I wasn't just critical of him because people thought it was cool because the cool thing is to hate Donald Trump. I didn't like, I didn't like the man. I found him to be quite, I found him to be quite hard-headed, quite ignorant, and I didn't like the way he ran his business. I thought he ran his businesses like a scam artist, and I didn't like the way he was running the United States. And I still have some criticism of him, but I support him, and I support him all the way. With Operation IP They Watch, which is really the precursor to Operation Legend. And Operation Legend is a continuation of my Operation Deep Shit against the deep state, and Operations IP They Watch, which is, because it's IP addresses, IP They Watch, literally. They literally watch me while I pee, and I have the network mapping. It's all, it's all here on my Instagram to prove it. And, now it's just a waiting game, for these corporations to destroy themselves or get arrested. But the thing is, Canada is so broke because this fucking COVID scamdemic. People are shooting themselves in the foot economically. And it's like Toronto bars carrying naloxone. It's like, why? That looks like Ford's crack pipe. That's hilarious. Why are bars are a drinking establishment? So if bars are carrying naloxone, why can't they sell fentanyl and heroin at the bar? And there's no shame in being a drug addict. There's no shame in it. I quit because it wasn't working for me anymore. It was causing me to have, it was lowering my testosterone. Meth was shrinking my dick. It shrunk my dick an inch. And, it was giving me kidney problems, gallbladder problems. And you never know, with the police selling it and cutting it with God knows what, you don't know what's in it. And, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes you get it, it's good. Sometimes you get it, it's not good. And this is the problem with the illegality of drugs. There's no quality control. So, I'm glad to be 10 days clean off of meth and about a month clean off of fentanyl. And I'm going to stay that way. I'm just so disgusted by the whole culture that, it's despite them trying to get me, harassing me and dogging me and getting me to try to relapse, it's had an opposite effect where I just don't want anything to do with it. I don't want anything to do with the culture. I want to get out of the Roehampton. I want to get housing, which the city is dragging its feet on because, multinational corporations and medical technology companies as well as shady military operations are making money off of mine and my uncle's suffering. Most of the people in the Roehampton aren't even homeless. They have places to go. They have friends they can stay with. They're confidential informants being paid in drugs and perks and favors, double standards. They're allowed to smoke in their room, eat in their room. We aren't. And it is essentially. I don't use the word concentration camp lightly, but that's what the shelter system is. It's a pre-extermination system. Maybe it's not as brutal as the concentration camps, but it's the same idea. Obviously they can't put people in gas chambers now with the internet being around and everybody watching everybody else, but they do it underhandedly. And I actually have been gassed. When I was staying at 533 Keel with my uncle, we were renting from this landlord named Joe, who would come into our room when we were, break into our room when we were gone, and leave the door open as a form of intimidation to let us know that he was in fact doing this. I found a small camera hidden in a thumbtack. And, when I discovered that, I was gassed. Yellow gas through the vent. And I had to immediately, thankfully I had meth on me. And I was able to counteract the sedating effect of this yellow gas. Because they were going to come in and kill me while my uncle was at South Riverdale, who's also involved in this shit. And but thankfully, I'm a pugilist. I had a wrought iron bar, and I was ready to. I blocked the door with furniture, sure, and I was ready to kill them one at a time. But what happened was I bargained my way out of there. I said, okay, look, I'm going to leave this thumbtack camera here on the table, and I'm going to gather up my uncle's things and my things, and I'll make you a deal. If you let me go, then we're cool. And obviously you can't call the police in this situation because they didn't help us. It's the same thing with 38 Ann Arbor, where 6 police eyewitnessed a housemate making death threats, calling us calling us both a batty boy, which is a patois slang for, it's like FAGGOT. It's very derogatory patois, for a gay person. And of course, I'm not gay, but it highlights that other point earlier where it's gay by association. And there are people in Toronto that still believe in conversion therapy and still think it's valid. Same people that are pushing this shit. So, anyways, I'm gonna end the video now, and I'm gonna share it, and please listen, because this affects you too. Whether you're a drug user, whether you're not a drug user, this is the destruction of our society by hostile foreign entities. So, wake up or fall victim. Thank you.